Warning, the following video has flashing lights and also includes content that may be deemed inappropriate for some viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. Brian Barber, yes, I see. Once again, you have found your way into the darkness of the fox den, as you have awoken me from my slumber for another Dogman encrypted expedition. Yet, please, I have been sleeping for so long and lost so much nutrition. I really do need to feed. Absolutely delicious. Thank you for bringing me gifts and releasing me from my shackles, Mr. Barber. Now, without further ado, it is time for Bigfoot's Barbershop and Midnight Lycanthropy to take a walk into the darkness.
Stood up. I said, oh my god, it's a werewolf. And everybody in the car freaked out.
My creatures of the night, yes, once again, it is Midnight Lycanthropy time here on LordeStarfox Radio. Of course, Mr. Barber, aka Bigfoot's Barbershop, has already found his way into the darkness of the fox den. How you doing tonight, man?
Doing good, my friend. Doing good.
This is excellent, my friend. Well, to the audience, Mr. Barber was spending a little bit of time last night diving into something that we are going to share with everyone here tonight and touch base on.
Yeah, so a mother and daughter were traveling through Ohio, a Native American, born and raised, lived there her entire life. She and her daughter were just driving home one night, and when all of a sudden some movement caught her eye to the right, and she didn't want to be running over any deer or smacking anything. So obviously she looked to get a good look, and what she saw terrified her and her daughter, because out walked what looked to be roughly 7 feet long giant wolf. It didn't fit the normal characteristics of a normal wolf. She said the legs were bent wonky. It was way too big to be any coyote or anything native to Ohio at that point. And it had a giant wolf's head that was still in proportion to the body, but it was just insanely huge, because you're talking almost 7 feet long. And it had a huge mane as well. It was black. And it just calmly walked across the road, took its time, glanced over at the car once, and continued on his way up into the swamp and forest on the other side of the road. It had come across, watching the video, looked like a Christmas tree farm, because you could see various pine trees that were all in a row, but some were cut down and just mismatched here and there, so people were picking their Christmas trees. And her daughter still refuses to speak about it because it terrified her so badly.
Interesting stuff right there, for sure. And of course, down in Ohio is good old Werewolf Square. That's also remotely near our sidekick, Danielle Ellie Steedman. Not necessarily right there, but close enough. It's also remotely close to you and the LBL. How do you feel about all of it as you spent time, watching it and listening?
Watching it, I didn't feel like she was telling any tales, we'll say. It just her body language, methodical with her movements, but once she started describing the creature that walked across the road, you could see she was visibly shaken. Her eyes got wide. She did take the crew of that video and walk them through where they did see it. So it had the right location. Everything looked good as far as the in her description of being, as far as trees and then a swamp in the background. So all that seemed to line up. So if anything, she was telling the truth about that. Did she happen to see a dogman on all fours? Maybe. She, is sticking to the story. She's not claiming dogman, but she is claiming it wasn't a wolf either. So she's hoping people can help her identify what crossed the road in front of her and her daughter.
Yeah, pretty interesting stuff for sure. Again, do you know if that supposed team that was assisting her came to any conclusions, or were they able to present any sort of, evidence, or was it more or less just her perspective?
It was more or less her perspective. There were several videos, so they didn't do a synopsis of what they thought it was.
Do you think, as you're spending more time on this, that this is just an undiscovered, potentially, or extinct animal that we just aren't recognizing? Or are you starting to get to the point where you're willing to potentially say that this definitely is either supernatural or extraterrestrial?
I tend to be a little more toward the physical side. Yeah, when talking about even Bigfoot or Dogman, the only time I accept going into supernatural is when you're talking skinwalkers. But as far as Dogman and was this potentially a skinwalker, I don't think so. It sounded too big. Normally you hear skinwalkers being, coyotes, foxes, things like that. But they can be other things. So I tend to lean toward the physical side with this one. As far as her description of the legs being wonky and stuff, maybe that was just due to stress. Because if she looked and had determined in her mind that wasn't anything she knew, maybe that does cloud your judgment a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is one of those things, unfortunately. People are always going to believe what they want to believe, and also potentially look at and use certain evidences, meaning we'll talk about it more at some point, and I'll have to show you some of the feedback. But we have one person that enjoys our podcast that isn't sold on our buddy Mike making the Gable film. He said that it doesn't even look like the same ghillie suit. Where's the shot of him on all fours? And it's like, man, I don't really know how much more we can present.
Well, he's looking at a film that was shot with an 8mm camera compared to 4K now. Of course it's not going to look the same.
Yes, correct. It's definitely going to be tough with that, because it's not going to get any easier with AI. But I will say some interesting things I've run into with some of the images that I do find really intriguing. I will then reverse search them in Google. If it pops up, it was created, or you can track down where it came from. But a lot of times, man, it will come back as black bear or baboon. Really interesting stuff.
Yeah, I've done that with a couple pics where it come back black bear for a Bigfoot picture. Funny story for you. I had been talking, a lot about wanting to get like an old camera so you don't get the digital pixelation from stuff. And today I was taking trash out for the gym and looked in the dumpster, and somebody had thrown there was a bunch of weird stuff being tossed in the dumpster, and I texted the owner, did you throw that in there? And I never heard back from him, but I was looking, and sitting on top of the pile was an old trail cam. I thought it's probably broke, that's why they threw it away. And take it in the gym and open it up, and lo and behold, it's holding a roll of film in it. So it's old enough to have to use film. And I went, there's no way this works. So I put batteries in it, and sure enough, it flashed me right in the eyes. And it worked. So now I'm curious about two things, because I want to get the old used older pictures because those are the ones that you can blow up or look at with a magnifying glass. So there's be no pixelation on it. And I'm also curious what's on that film because it's been used. So wouldn't that be funny if there's a picture of Bigfoot on it? And now I try to peddle it as one I found in the dumpster.
Right? I don't know, super funny. No, wouldn't
That's
it be
really a
hilarious
Bigfoot film.
if it was Mike himself, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that this, per se, Dogman is going to be hyper carnivorous, or do you think it's going to be more omnivorous? And the reason I say that is a lot of people don't realize the majority of canines in the wild are borderline omnivorous, meaning they'll eat eggs and berries and grass, not just meat. It's your felines that are hyper carnivorous. Would you think that would make more sense, per se, for these Michigan dogmen and these dogman encounters in general? I mean, if they're flesh and blood like you and I, they got to eat, man. So,
Yeah, and maybe they've adapted like the sea wolves did, where they're grabbing fish and stuff that's close to shores. And I would tend to think something probably primarily, wild game, but capable of doing, like you said, eating eggs and stuff like that if necessary.
if it's remotely, let's say a Sasquatch, if people are going to say it's related to us, it's got to be potentially more omnivorous. And same thing with something dogmanish.
No, I agree with you, and that's why I stay away from the spiritual part because you get so many reports of them eating stuff.
Mm-hmm.
What would a spirit eat for? Now, if you get into the supernatural, maybe it's a crossover because they've been eating things, but at the same time, they seem to have a habit of just trying to make you afraid.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they feed off that adrenaline rush. Yeah, you want as many outside views as possible so that you cover all your bases when you're putting that information out there.
That's like the big thing is,
Yep, I will. That's why I love the fitness industry, and the more I dig into Dogman and Bigfoot is because I like to learn, and these are ever evolving topics.
mm-hmm.
So, sometimes it's information recycled. Especially in fitness, everything's recycled. There's been nothing new in 30 years. But that doesn't mean you've heard everything that's been put out in 30 years either. So,
Exactly. Preach right there.
if you want to have a good picture and prove these things exist, you need the average person to be able to see it. So, that's mainstream. Now, pictures for other enthusiasts who will be like, yeah, okay, I see the head and the shoulders and stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that without the circles. But in order for it to be verifiable, and you just need to be able to see it without question.
Mm-hmm. Exactly, my friend. No, it's just very bizarre. I'm just basically learning what I'm able to present to people that are outside of my science team and what people are willing to look at as I try to potentially recruit them or, get their thoughts and stuff. And yeah, those are just some of the things I've run into, like the images of one track or, some of the potential pareidolia stuff we're talking about. They, really have no interest in looking at that. But when I'm able to show like numerous track patterns and some of the vocalizations, we got some people scratching their head a little bit for sure.
If you can, maybe there's only one really good print, and through you is how I learned. Well, you know what? You still take a picture of all the others because, yeah, that was the best print, but there's still the signs of other prints. So.
Mm-hmm. Someone like Nuxium, Brother Nature, William Nighthawk, Ellie, people that can just kind of, pick up on that stuff. It's like that Bigfoot picture you showed last night. That's what's good about that, man. Not only do you see a track pattern, but you see the environment. Someone that is familiar with being out in the wilderness and that type of area is going to understand weight distribution it's going to take to make impressions like that. It makes it harder to ignore. That is facts. Well, my guy, as we are starting to tie this up right here, is there anything else tonight you would like to touch base on, or any shout outs, or any areas people can catch you at that you would like to give the audience a good old plug for?
You can check out Bigfoot's Barbershop on YouTube, and you can also check out Bigfoot Outlaw and Bigfoot's Barbershop on Friday nights at 9, where I do a live podcast. So,
if you do enjoy our content, please hit that like button If you're not subscribed yet, we have noticed that a lot of our viewers actually aren't subscribed to us. Make sure you do that as well, and comment too, because all three of those things right there really help the good old algorithm pay attention. Well, thanks for hanging out tonight, man.
Oh, thank you. It's always a pleasure, my friend.
Oh, my creatures of the night, I do adore every single one of you legends. Thank you for hanging out tonight. Please like, comment, subscribe, share the truth to the algorithm. And remember, there are very dangerous things that go bump in the night.